Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of Daily Stock, we are going to consider the quarterly earnings report of the Goldman Sachs, which released its first quarter earnings for the 2024, and the earnings have been fabulous to say the least. We have fantastic growth on quarter-on-quarter as well as on year-on-year terms. Its revenues are higher, its net profit is higher. More than the growth in revenues, there is growth in the net profit. That points to two specific scenarios, two positive developments. If the revenues are rising and the net profit is rising, that means either the company is gaining market share, or if it is holding steady on the market share, it is able to have the pricing power that is resulting in higher revenues. And when this revenue growth is also accompanied by the growth in the net profit, that means not only company is gaining ground, gaining market share, or gaining the pricing power, along with that it is also getting more efficient as an organization, as it is able to report better operating margin and resultant higher net income. So both these positives seems to be playing out in the favor of Goldman Sachs at the moment, as we take a look on these earnings report for the first quarter of 2024. If you read the highlights of these earnings report, you will see that the company's chairman and the CEO has strongly suggested the growing business, which is being driven by the strong fundamentals and economic well-being of the company as well as the countries in which it operates. Its focus area remains North America, but of course, it's being a global major financial player has presence across the world, particularly in major economies. For the highlights of the financial position, we have these numbers listed upfront. There is net revenue of $14.21 billion for the first quarter, and as I have said, it's showing double-digit growth in the revenues. The net earnings have topped $4 billion, and this is not the case that this kind of earnings are reported much often. Even for the prior quarter, the numbers were substantially lower, but now, as things have turned in favor of the Goldman Sachs, we are seeing the strong growth, which has propelled its earnings beyond the $4 billion mark. The earning per share, the EPS, is markedly higher and now in double digits at US dollar 11.58. The annualized rate of return on equity is at US dollar 14.8%. This is in percentage form, so we don't really have to use US dollar as a prefix. It's simply and purely in percentages. The return on equity rate is at US dollar. Oh, again, I made the same mistake. Is at 14.8%. The annualized rate of return is at 14, not 14. It is 15.9. And even if there is a fluctuation in the share price of the Goldman Sachs, we always have this intrinsic value defined by the book value per share, and that is at US dollar 321, which is on the lower side in comparison to the market value of each share of the Goldman Sachs. But it's not really long back. The market value of the share of the Goldman Sachs was also hovering close to US dollar 300 mark. Now it has seen substantial growth, particularly after the release of earnings report. In these last couple of sessions, it has grown almost 10 percentage points, and there was positive momentum couple of weeks before that as well. But now it has gathered a fresh momentum with these higher net income, higher net revenues being reported by the bank. These are the key highlights of the company. I would surely recommend that you should go through the report which is publicly available on the investors relations page of the Goldman Sachs. If you want to have the in-depth data points at your hand, you can always access it as I have mentioned the source. Now, for us, the time is going to be short and we have to only consider the highlights of the highlights. So I won't be able to take you through the report in totality. The company, the Goldman Sachs, is ranked worldwide for the announcement and completion of mergers and acquisition for year to date. There has been growth in the asset and wealth management segment as well, which has reported the record quarterly management and other fees. The assets under supervision have also increased by US $36 billion. Now the new numbers, the assets under supervision stand at US $2.85 trillion, which is the highest ever for the Goldman Sachs. The segment of global banking and markets have generated the highest revenue share at US $9.73 billion. So this is the company's real cash cow. The revenues were 16% higher than the first quarter of fiscal year 2023 and 26% higher just in a quarter. That's a phenomenal growth to say the least. But then we also have to consider the time around which the revenues have been booked, and that gives us a pretty good idea of when to consider the revenues to be higher than the expectations and when to expect the revenues to be on the lower side. The company operates under multiple segments. It has group for handling the global banking and markets. Then there is asset and wealth management. All these assets and wealth management holdings have been listed here. The platform solution is also there in the report. Now we turn our gaze to the income statement for the bank. All right, here comes the segment net revenues. If you want to go through and understand how much money was being made in each of the segment in which the Goldman Sachs operate, you can go through this report and it will be very helpful to figure out the microeconomic as well as the macroeconomic scenarios surrounding the workings of the Goldman Sachs. This is the consolidated statement of earnings. In it, you can see which are the states which are contributing to the growth and which are the heads which are pulling it on the lower side. For the total net revenues, there is this substantial growth no matter how you compare, because in the quarter-on-quarter growth, there is growth of about 3 billion, and in terms of year-on-year growth, there is increase of 2 billion. That means there was a lot of cash inflow for the last couple of months in the Goldman Sachs, as it has remarkably shown the resilience and successfully demonstrated to the consumers, to the shareholders, that it can thrive in any environment, however challenging it might be. For the net income, if we consider total revenues, then we also have to consider the expenses, and only after deducting the expense we get these net earnings. And one key thing is, if you take a look on the expenses figures, you will see that in terms of changes in the expenses, there is not much of a difference for last couple of quarters. The total operating expenses were at $8.6 billion for the last quarter, which is almost in the ballpark of the kind of expenses we have seen earlier, a quarter back as well as a year back. And the only difference that is happening is after adjusting for these fixed expenses, the Goldman Sachs has been able to report a lot higher profit on account of substantial revenue growth, and its fixed cost, the cost of operations, have more or less remained on the same side, remained on similar levels. The net earnings have shown this fabulous growth, and the only thing is whether it is likely to be sustained or not, that the time will tell. But the forecast is this growth in the assets under supervision is also going to contribute to the higher income for the shareholders. We don't really have the cash flow statement provided to us along with this document, so we will have to omit the cash flow statement analysis. Here we have these assets under supervision numbers, and in it you can see clearly that there has been substantial growth, and now the total assets under supervision are little shy of $3 trillion, but it's likely to get there sooner than later. Now we turn our gaze to the technical side of the story to see if there is any opportunity for us to trade and invest. The Goldman Sachs share price has been steadily climbing up since the release of its earnings report. Immediately after the earnings report release, on the very next day, there was this sharp move in which the Goldman Sachs had shown the jump of 6 to 7 percentage point, but it wasn't really sustained, and most of those gains evaporated. And on the very next day, it was not really that high in comparison to where it was prior to the earnings release. But in course of time, after the last few weeks, things seems to be changing, and we have this remarkable rally which has pushed the valuations of Goldman Sachs around 4 to 5 percentage point in the short span of just two sessions. Now, the question is, if we are likely to get similar kind of opportunity. I think it's very difficult to answer, because on these elevated levels, there is not much that can be done, because these Goldman Sachs shares are fairly close to the prior multi-year high at 2000 at 430 near about, that is the approximate number. And here we are seeing that the Goldman Sachs is again reaching for that multi-year high established a couple of years back. And if I'm able to find the opportunity in the Goldman Sachs in the next few sessions, I think it's more likely to be on the medium term, because in the longer term scenario, the formation is of higher highs and higher lows. But as we have seen substantial rally over last couple of sessions, it's going to be a difficult call to take right now on these elevated levels, because the profit is likely to be limited even if we get it right. But if it goes into a consolidation phase, we might end up money for no good reason. So I would advise cautious, advise restraint at the current juncture, and maybe in the medium term there might be some opportunities coming our way, but that is also not really the possibility here, not unless there is some decline of say 4 or 5 percentage point and the price gets close to its a recent swing low. But that's a tougher ask, and only time will tell if there is going to be any decline and then substantial subsequent consolidation in the price band of 380 to 390. And unless that happens, it is very difficult to advise any kind of a fresh trade on these elevated levels. And I feel the scenario is not really going to be very different for the weekly. Here also you can see that Goldman Sachs has now gone on to touch these prior swing high established way back in the second half of 2021. And for last few weeks, as I have said, we need to be careful of these elevated levels, and it will be better for us to wait for better opportunities. By better, I mean optimum trade, because on these elevated levels, the odds are not going to be in our favor in the eventuality of Goldman Sachs doesn't really go anywhere and consolidates for extended period of time. In that scenario, the things are not going to be favorable. So no matter which time frame you are looking at, from short term to the very long term, the things are bullish. There is no question about it, but we don't really have any optimum opportunity straight away. Maybe on the short run, if you keep an eye on the share price of the Goldman Sachs over the next few days, and after things stabilize, you can indeed give it a shot and try it with a buy on dips approach. Similar is going to be my advice for the medium as well as for the longer term and in the short run as well. There is no trade in sight at the moment, but given the way things are poised, I feel this bullish momentum is likely to last, and we should be able to take advantage of the situation and keep working to figure out the trading and investing opportunity over next few days, next few weeks, and even next few months, depending on the time horizon you are looking at. So that's all from my side for today's session of Daily Stock, in which we consider the quarterly earnings report for the first quarter of 2023. Afterwards, we have already seen this price formation, these candlestick formation, which we can utilize to take the optimal trade using these share price movements. Now it's time for me to sign off for the day. If you have found the session informative and useful for your trading activity. Do write to me in the feedback and also like and subscribe to the channel where you will find equally interesting sessions hosted by me as well as other analysts. Now it's time to say goodbye. I will be back tomorrow with a equally interesting company to work with. See you next time. Till then, goodbye.